The fire officer's supervisor. Every fire officer has a supervisor. A fire officer's supervisor is usually a command level officer, a battalion chief, a district chief, or a battalion commander, who supervises numerous fire companies within a geographic area. The battalion chief's supervisor could be a deputy chief or an assistant chief who reports directly to the fire chief. In the same manner, the fire chief would report to the mayor, the city manager, the commissioner of public safety, or an individual at an equivalent level. Under the chain of command, the fire chief's orders and directives are passed down through the deputy chief or assistant chief to the battalion or district chief, who then ensures that the fire officers enact those orders or directives. Regardless of the organizational structure, every fire officer has an obligation to work effectively with the supervisor. 3 activities are necessary to ensure a good working relationship. Keep your supervisor informed. Make appropriate decisions at your level of responsibility. And consult with your supervisor before taking major disciplinary actions or making policy changes. No supervisor likes surprises. Part of the supervisor-subordinate relationship is to make sure the supervisor is not surprised or blindsided. Figure 1-17, page 26. For example, if a fire company vehicle collides with a civilian vehicle at 9:30 p.m., the chief needs to immediately be notified. It would be poor form for the chief to find out about the accident from a story on the 11 o'clock news. Supervising fire officers should not hesitate to make decisions appropriate for their level of responsibility. This means that problems should be addressed and situations resolved where and when they occur. If a fire officer has the authority to solve a problem, he or she should not wait for the supervisor to arrive to solve it. This level of authority usually covers fire station level activities such as maintenance, training, and community outreach. At fire stations with rotating career work shifts, the expectation is that most issues between the shifts will be resolved at the supervising fire officer level. A fire officer who is working in a staff position should make the decisions appropriate for that position. Volunteer officers should make decisions appropriate for their level within the organization. Some issues require the fire officer to consult with a supervisor before making a decision or taking action. Policy changes, for example, cannot be enacted within an administrative vacuum. If a decision will have an impact that goes beyond the fire officer's scope of authority, it is time to move the discussion up to the next level in the chain of command. This policy also applies before major disciplinary actions are taken. Consultation with a supervisor is required by the municipal personnel regulations to ensure that all major discipline is delivered in a consistent and impartial manner. This is also a recommended practice in most volunteer fire departments. Integrity and ethical behavior. The formal organization provides the new supervising fire officer with the symbols of power and authority that are associated with the badge, insignia, and distinctive markings on the officer's helmet. The individual, however, needs to provide the core values of integrity and ethical behavior that, combined with the formal symbols, create an effective fire officer. An unethical fire officer is ineffective and damages the department's reputation. If their behavior goes uncorrected, an unethical and corrupt fire officer will corrode the department's ability to deliver services and maintain public trust. Integrity. Integrity refers to the complex system of inherent attributes that determine a person's moral and ethical actions and reactions, including the quality of being honest. The fire officer should walk the talk and demonstrate the behaviors that he or she says are important. Figure 1-18, page 27. If the company officer says that physical fitness is important, then the firefighters should see their officer performing physical fitness training during the workday. Integrity can be demonstrated by a steadfast adherence to a moral code. Such a code combines a fire officer's internal value system and the fire department's official organizational value system. Formal organizations publish their expectations as a code of ethics, a code of conduct, or a list of value statements. Ethical behavior. The fire officer position provides a wide range of opportunities to demonstrate ethical behavior. The fire officer demonstrating ethical behavior makes the decisions and models behavior consistent with the department's core values, mission statement, and value statements. Inappropriate behavior by individuals in power or holding the public trust is a frequent target of attention for the media, and the fire service is not exempt from such scrutiny. Much of the time, fire officers make ethical decisions, choosing to do the right thing. However, sometimes officers make unethical choices, which may then influence firefighters to make unethical choices. When they engage in such behavior, officers' poor choices often appear in the newspaper and have very negative consequences for both the individual and the fire service organization. Ethical choices are based on a value system. The officer must consider each situation, often subconsciously, and make a decision based on his or her values. If the organization has clear values that are part of a strong organizational culture, the officer uses the organization's value system. If the values are not clear, the individual substitute his or her own value system. The key to improving ethical choices is to have clear organizational values. This can be accomplished by having a code of ethics that is well known throughout the organization, selecting employees who share the values of the organization, ensuring that top management exhibits ethical behavior, having clear job goals, having performance appraisals that reward ethical behavior, implementing an ethics training program. Even at the company level, these values can be implemented to help prevent undesirable ethical choices. One way to help judge a decision is to ask yourself 3 questions. 1. What would my parents and friends say if they knew? 2. Would I mind if the newspaper ran it as a headline story? 3. How does it make me feel about myself? Asking these questions can help prevent an event that could devastate the department's and the fire officer's reputation for years to come. Fire department activity tends to be high profile regardless of the task. Even a trip to the grocery store to pick up dinner draws public attention. The fire officer should act as if someone is always documenting his or her actions when out of the fire station. Workplace diversity. Diversity is a characteristic of a fire workforce that reflects differences in terms of age, cultural background, race, religion, sex, and sexual orientation. Issues of diversity are guided by the civil rights of Americans. Those rights are established by federal laws, which are enforced in the workplace by the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, EEOC. Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 covers state and local governments, schools, colleges, and unions. This law states that it is illegal for an employer to 1. Fail or refuse to hire or discharge any individual or otherwise discriminate against any individual with respect to compensation, terms, conditions, or privileges of employment because of such individual's race, color, religion, sex, or national origin. Or 2. Limit, segregate, or classify employees or applicants for employment in any way that would deprive any individual of employment opportunities or otherwise adversely affect status as an employee because of such individual's race, color, religion, sex, or national origin. The Equal Employment Opportunity Act of 1972 amended the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and expanded its coverage to include almost all public and private employers with 15 or more employees. In general, the 1972 Act covers volunteer fire departments and other non-profit emergency service organizations. The Civil Rights Act of 1991 provides additional compensatory and punitive damages in cases of intentional discrimination under Title VII and the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990. The changes introduced in the 1991 Act increased the number of discrimination lawsuits filed against organizations. Many fire departments have made changes to their recruitment, hiring, and promotion practices to comply with the various civil rights laws. Some departments took action to diversify their workforces without the prompting of the courts. Where this did not occur, the legal remedies have ranged from consent decrees in which the fire department agrees to accomplish specific diversity goals within a specific time to court orders outlining specific hiring practices. Diversity, as applied to fire departments, means the workforce should reflect the community it serves. In all cases, the overarching goal is for the fire department to reflect the diversity of the community. Consider the example of a fire department that is 90% Caucasian in a community where the overall population is 40% African American, 20% Latino, and 20% Asian American. This fire department population is not reflecting the broader community. If the department has agreed to an EEOC consent decree, it has promised the court that it will work to hire qualified individuals who reflect the community. A consent decree can require a variety of activities, including community outreach, job fairs, pre-employment preparation, and peer group coaching. The court formally meets with the fire department representative periodically to see how well the department is progressing. Some departments operate under a specific court-mandated hiring process. Using our earlier example, the court could require the department to hire 2 African Americans, 1 Latino, and 1 Asian American before it can hire 1 additional Caucasian. This requirement would remain in effect until the hiring diversity goal is accomplished. Expiration of a court order does not relieve the fire department of its charge to maintain diversity. One large fire department had a qualified applicant pool that included 23% candidates representing a protected class when a consent decree was terminated in 1999. By 2008, that representation shrunk to 7% of the qualified applicant pool, resulting in another inquiry by the court. The fire officer's role in workplace diversity. Jack W. Gravely is a lawyer, subject matter expert, and trainer on workplace diversity. He has been a frequent speaker at public safety agencies on issues of racial and cultural diversity. When Gravely started teaching diversity training classes to local government leaders, the emphasis was on the language of the regulations and their potential impact. In a 2015 presentation, Gravely pointed out that today's supervisor has the benefit of 4 decades of equal employment opportunity, EEO, affirmative action, AA, court decisions to guide decision making. Gravely noted that thousands of court decisions have created a large body of case law that presents a generally consistent policy on how a supervisor should behave in the workplace. Gravely recommended that a fire officer focus on actionable items and the definition of a hostile work environment. According to the United States Department of Labor, a hostile work environment can result from the unwelcome conduct of supervisors, coworkers, customers, contractors, or anyone else with whom the victim interacts on the job. And the unwelcome conduct renders the workplace atmosphere intimidating, hostile, or offensive. In 2017, the EEOC filed 184 lawsuits and 84,254 workplace discrimination charges. Actionable items. An actionable item is an employee behavior that requires an immediate corrective action by the supervisor. Dozens of lawsuits have shown that failing to act when these situations occur is likely to create liability and a loss for the department. The best example is the use of certain words in the workplace. An employee's use of derogatory or racist terms about people from other ethnicities, religions, or genders requires immediate corrective action by the supervisor. Regardless of the conditions, context, or situation, such words are inappropriate and represent a potential $1 million liability to the organization. The fire officer must act immediately in these situations. That means speaking with the offending firefighter in private and counseling the firefighter that the use of such words is unacceptable in the fire station or in any situation where the individual is representing the department, either on duty or off duty but in uniform. Figure 1-19, page 29. The fire officer should provide the firefighter with the fire department's or municipality's EEO-AA policy statement and, if applicable, the code of conduct. The fire officer should also maintain a formal or informal record of the counseling session. If any doubt arises about whether the message was fully understood, the fire officer should ensure that a higher level supervisor is informed of the actions that have been taken. The same policies should apply to firefighters who are regularly assigned to the fire company, firefighters detailed in or visiting the fire station, and other uniformed or civilian members of the fire department. Case law has shown that use of unacceptable language requires an immediate response. An officer's failure to act has been interpreted as official condoning or encouragement of such behavior. Although enough case law is available to provide general guidelines and some specific examples, the subject of what constitutes harassment remains a dynamic aspect of the work environment. The fire officer needs to stay informed about the organization's EEO-AA and diversity policies. Most large organizations have a diversity or EEO-AA office and can provide up-to-date information and answer questions. Hostile workplace and sexual harassment. In 1999, the EEOC amended the guidelines on sexual harassment. The amended regulations broadened the types of harassment that are considered illegal and included a requirement that employers have a duty to maintain a harassment-free work environment. The standard for evaluating sexual harassment is what a reasonable person in the same or similar circumstances would find intimidating, hostile, or abusive. The 1999 guidelines clearly state that employers are liable for the acts of those who work for them if the organizations knew or should have known about the conduct and took no immediate appropriate corrective action. That is why a fire officer must immediately respond to any utterances of offensive or derogatory language in the work environment. Sexual harassment is unwelcome sexual advances, requests for sexual favors, and other verbal or physical harassment of a sexual nature. The abuse of power is an essential component of sexual harassment. The EEOC guidelines state that verbal and physical conduct of a sexual nature is harassment when the following conditions are present. The employee is made to feel that he or she has to endure such treatment to remain employed. Whether the employee submits to or rejects such treatment is used when making employment decisions. The employee's work performance is affected. An intimidating, hostile, or offensive work environment is present. EEOC 1990. The term hostile work environment can be used to describe a broad range of situations in which an employee is subject to discrimination in the workplace. The generalized hostile workplace definition can apply to a variety of circumstances that do not necessarily include a specific abuse of supervisory power. Jack Gravely believes that hostile work complaints will shape workplace diversity. There are few quid pro quo sexual harassment cases in which a supervisor specifically promises a work-related benefit in return for a sexual favor. Instead, the trend is toward more complaints about hostile work environment, which can involve sexual issues. The 2017 EEOC report notes an increased percentage of retaliation complaints. Many examples can be cited of hostile workplace issues that resulted in large court-directed settlements for the complainant. In one municipality, a series of lawsuits for sexual harassment and discrimination from 2006 to 2018 cost the city $30 million in settlements and legal fees. Handling a harassment or hostile workplace complaint. Firefighters who want to initiate a harassment complaint have a choice of 3 methods for doing so. They can start with the federal government, they can start with the local government, or they can start within the fire department. It is their choice. If the process starts within the fire department, the fire officer may be the first formal point of contact. In this case, the fire officer would function as the first step of a multi-step procedure. The fire officer should know the department's procedure for handling a harassment or hostile workplace complaint. The fire officer's designated role in conducting an investigation of an EEO complaint depends on the procedures adopted by the jurisdiction or the fire department. In some cases, an officer's role is limited to starting the process by making appropriate notifications. Many local governments have specifically trained EEO staff who conduct an investigation. In other cases, the fire officer might be required to perform the initial investigation and submit a report. Following are general guidelines. Keep an open mind. Many fire officers have a difficult time believing that discrimination or harassment could be happening right under their noses. Failure to investigate a complaint, however, is the most common reason a local government is found liable. Every complaint must be investigated and documented. Do not come to any conclusions until your investigation is complete. Follow your organization's procedures and inform your supervisor. Treat the person who files the complaint with respect and compassion. Employees often find it extremely difficult to complain about discrimination or harassment. When an employee comes to you with concerns about discrimination or harassment, be professional and be understanding. Do not blame the person filing the complaint. Case law and current practice dictate that it is the complainant who determines whether the situation is hostile or is harassment. Blaming the person bringing the complaint to you is the second most common way that local governments lose harassment or hostile workplace complaints. Do not retaliate against the person filing the complaint. It is against the law to punish someone for complaining about discrimination or harassment. The most obvious forms of retaliation are termination, discipline, demotion, or threats to do any of these things. More subtle forms of retaliation could include changing the shift hours or work location of the accuser, even if the intent is to remove the alleged victim from the problem. Follow established procedures. Local government personnel regulations generally provide a detailed procedure on how to handle harassment or hostile workplace complaints. Follow the procedure used in your jurisdiction. Interview the people involved. An initial investigation usually involves conducting interviews with the people who are involved in the situation, typically starting with the person who made the complaint. The interviewer needs to find out exactly what the employee is concerned about. Get details, what was said or done, when and where, and who was present. Then talk to any employees who are being accused of discrimination or harassment. Get details from them as well. Be sure to interview any witnesses who may have seen or heard any problematic conduct. Take notes about your interviews and gather any relevant documents. Look for corroboration or contradiction. Discrimination and harassment complaints often involve he said, she said situations. The accuser and the accused may offer different versions of an incident, leaving you with no way of knowing who is telling the truth. In such a case, you may have to turn to the other sources for clues. Witnesses may have seen part of an incident. In some cases, documents, such as emails and posted notes, may prove one side to be right. Keep it confidential. A discrimination complaint can polarize a workplace. The unique team nature of 24-hour fire service work creates a close environment where it is difficult to maintain confidentiality. The fire officer must insist on and enforce confidentiality during the investigation. Write it all down. Take notes during all interviews. Before the interview is over, go back through your notes with the interviewee to ensure accuracy. Keep a journal of the investigation. Write down the steps you have taken to get at the truth, including dates and places of interviews. Keep a list of all documents that are reviewed. Document any action taken against the accused or the reasons for deciding not to take action. Anticipate that all of this written record will be used in any subsequent civil service or court actions. Cooperate with government agencies. If the firefighter files a complaint with another government agency, either the federal EEOC or an equivalent state agency, that agency may investigate. Notify your superior as soon as you receive a call or visit from an EEOC investigator. You will probably be asked to provide certain documents, to give your side of the story, and to explain any efforts you made to deal with the complaint yourself. Be cautious but cooperative. Regardless of where the complaint is filed, the fire chief is required to take corrective action if the investigation confirms that the complaint has merit. If the department concludes that some form of discrimination or harassment occurred, formal corrective action could include mandatory training, work location transfer, or demotion. Termination may be proposed for more egregious kinds of discrimination and harassment, such as threats, stalking, or repeated unwanted physical contact. Credentialing and fire officer development. The foundation of company officer practice started with the Big City Fire Company foreman of the 1880s and used the company commander experience from the 20th century wars to evolve practices and procedures. These elements were codified when the NFPA established the Professional Qualification Standards, adopting NFPA 1021 for fire officers in 1976. The IAFC expanded company officer development, updated in 2010, providing an officer development handbook to encourage company officers to acquire the appropriate levels of training, experience, self-development, and education throughout their professional journey to prepare for the Chief Fire Officer, CFO, designation, the pinnacle of professional development. There are two organizations that offer fire credentialing: the Center for Public Safety Excellence, CPSE, and the National Fire Academy, NFA. The CPSE is a not-for-profit 501c3 corporation that is international technical organization that works with the most fire and emergency service agencies and most active fire professionals. The CPSE mission is to lead the fire and emergency service to excellence through the continuous quality improvement process of accreditation, credentialing, and education. CPSE provides accreditation to fire agencies and credentialing to individuals. The Commission on Professional Credentialing, CPC, offers 5 distinct designations covering the various levels and specialties of fire officers. CPC provides 1. An application process that officers use to develop their portfolio, 2. Training and support while developing their portfolio, and 3. Access to experienced peer reviewers. Fire officer is one of the designations open to all junior officers, company officers, or those who have served on an intermittent acting status for 12 months. The CPC model looks at the whole officer. 1. Education. 2. Experience. 3. Professional development, training, and certifications. 4. Professional contributions and recognitions. 5. Professional memberships and affiliations. 6. Technical competence, depending on the credential, 7 to 20 different competencies. 7. Community involvement. The process includes a self-assessment, professional portfolio, peer review, and interview process. There are over 450 CPC credentialed fire officers. The NFA is a component of the United States Fire Academy, USFA, that works to enhance the ability of fire and emergency services and allied professionals to deal more effectively with fire and related emergencies. Free training courses and programs are delivered at a campus in Emmitsburg, Maryland, online, and through designated state fire agencies. The NFA's Managing Officer Program is a multi-year curriculum that introduces emerging emergency service leaders to personal and professional skills in change management, risk reduction, and adaptive leadership. Acceptance into the program is the first step in your professional development as a career, volunteer, part-time, or combination fire EMS manager, and includes all 4 elements of professional development: education, training, experience, and continuing education. There are 3 elements of the program. 1. 5 prerequisite courses, online and classroom deliveries in your state. 1A Q0890 Introduction to Emergency Response to Terrorism. 1B ICS 100 Introduction to ICS for Operational First Responders. 1C ICS 200 Basic NIMS ICS for Operational First Responders, 1D IS 700A National Incident Management System NIMS in Introduction, 1E IS 800C National Response Framework in Introduction. 2. 4 courses at the NFA in Emmitsburg, Maryland. 2A, Application of Community Risk Reduction. 2B, Applications of Leadership in the Culture of Safety. 2C, Analytical Tools for Decision Making. 2D, Training and Professional Development Challenges for Fire and Emergency Service Leaders. 3. A community-based capstone project. 3A, Lessons learned from one of the core courses required in the Managing Officer program. 3B, Experiences of the Managing Officer as identified in the IAFC Officer Development Handbook, 2nd edition. 3C, An issue or problem identified by your emergency agency or jurisdiction. 3D, Lessons learned from a recent administrative issue. 3E, Identification and analysis of an emerging issue of importance to the department. A certificate of completion for the Management Officer program is awarded after the successful completion of all courses and the capstone project. The IAFC Company Officer Leadership Program. Designed for crew leaders, senior station leadership, sergeants, lieutenants, and captains, the IAFC Company Officer Leadership (COL) program is a 3-level program that provides what company officers need and what chief officers expect. The program is based on NFPA 1021 Standard for Fire Officer Professional Qualifications, Fire Officer 1 and 2, and the IAFC Officer Development Handbook. There are 3 levels for the Company Officer program. Each level consists of 21 contact hours. Administration and Human Relations, 3 hours. Leadership, 3 hours. Community Risk Reduction, 3 hours. Operations, 3 hours. Safe Health and Wellness, 3 hours. Elective, 3 hours. And Social Learning and Networking, 3 hours.